Going live, and we are right on time. I love that.
All
So,
right.
welcome to our inaugural official episode of Gray Matters. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Madalena, and joining me in Brooklyn, New York, is my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Rob Lee Davis. How are you today, Rob?
I'm good. How's it going?
It's good, man. It's going really good. So we're going live. This is our first time going live. I want to first start off by thanking our sponsor. We have a sponsor starting right off. It's Colorado Department of Transportation, and they are hosting their Plan Ahead Don't Drive High campaign out here in Colorado, and we're really proud to be a part of that. We do believe in being responsible with your cannabis usage, and I just have to say one of the great things about being in a state like Colorado is that you get to talk to companies and marketing companies that work with the Colorado Department of Transportation and help with campaigns that are helping people be safe with legal cannabis. So it's kind of a cool thing. I'm really excited about that. But what I'm really excited about, Rob, is I'm excited about what we're doing here, man. So
Yes,
our first time doing like a thing together, and I since we were in Syracuse.
probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy thought, right? So for those of you who don't know, um, either one
The
of us or both of
history.
us, our history, we were roommates for the last 2 years at college. We both went to Syracuse University Drama
Yes.
Department.
Yes, we did. The
And
Q's.
the Cuse, yes. And we lived in New York. I lived in there for a short period of time for the first year after college when we graduated. 95 there. That was, yeah. And you've been in
Yes.
out there ever since, and
Yeah.
I moved around and lived in Chicago and then Colorado, and since I've been in Colorado, weed. That's what
Yes.
that
Colorado's
happened.
beautiful.
Yeah, you come out almost every year.
Yeah.
It didn't happen this year. I don't know why. God,
Yeah. I wonder. I wonder what was going
something
on.
got in the way. I don't know.
Yes.
So for those of you who have followed Hemp Connoisseur, this is kind of a fun little veer off from what we do. We're going to be doing a lot more shows that are absolutely very focused on hemp or marijuana, and we'll be doing quick news hits. This is kind of the new embodiment of what Hemp Connoisseur is going to be in HC Magazine. And I wanted to bring Rob along. We took a little bit of a hiatus as a company because we got forced to stop printing, and I was like, well, what are we gonna do? And we have the studio we built here, so we're like fully like becoming a video news company, but also it's a small space, and I'm doing this all on my own from the studio. I've always wanted to do something with you, but the distance always seemed like something that didn't work, Rob. Right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and now everybody's just zooming their shows,
Yeah.
so it's like
Everything's remote.
yeah.
It's a whole different experience quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's definitely kind of created this opportunity for us to be able to hang, even though we don't get to be together. So,
Yes.
COVID
There we
silver
go.
linings, right? I mean, I guess that's
COVID silver lining.
if there's such a thing.
Gotta find one, right?
I know you gotta find one, right? Oh, we got a ding on
Oh, we do.
something,
What?
and
Hey, whoever it is, what's up?
oh, did somebody say hello? Okay, see, so people, Rob's gonna work on trying to monitor um
You too.
our YouTube chats, and I'm gonna try to figure out how to be on the Facebook chat side of things for those of you who are watching us on Facebook. And for some reason, I can't see the chat, even though I used to be able to. Where'd you go? I don't know where that is. So, well, that's frustrating. Well, for those of you who want to chat with us, I think we're gonna have to focus on um on YouTube. Well, actually, I think we're going to have to totally focus on YouTube because Facebook keeps saying it's not being sent to it, even though I am
Facebook
absolutely.
is a mess.
Facebook's a mess. You know what? Fuck Facebook right now. I'm sorry, people, if you're trying to follow us on Facebook. It looks like it's going to
Yes.
happen to be just YouTube, and I don't know what to say about that, man. Let's get to the show, though. Okay, so
Sure.
we're going to
Okay.
talk about a lot of issues, and I was starting to say it's a little veer off for everybody in the Hemp Connoisseur. We will be talking about cannabis, but with you, you're not a cannabis expert. I'm always there to answer questions for you about cannabis if you want to ask him. And but the kind of the backstory of this is that the reason why we got into Hemp Connoisseur in the first place was it was the injustice of prohibition. It was the injustice of not having access to this amazing plant that
Right.
not as just that's not just medical, but all of the industrial and commercial
Mm-hmm.
applications of hemp
Mm-hmm.
can change our planet, and that's what I believe in and firmly. And so That's why we created Hemp Connoisseur. But we had to take this kind of pause for the cause in the spring, and during that pause, besides all hell breaking loose once, all hell broke loose twice. George Floyd was killed, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
everybody realized, "Holy shit! Is it unfair for Black people in America?" And it was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
and now it's like it's something that I feel like we have to talk about. We're a media company that, yes, we believe in cannabis legalization, but cannabis is part of the hugest tool in the racial tool belt against African Americans.
Oh my God.
Um,
Absolutely.
the drug war in general, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things I do want to stay really quickly. I want to make sure everybody's aware of this fact on a regular basis. So you might be hearing me say this all the time, but on any given day, according to the Prison Policy Initiative, which is prisonpolicy.org, if you want to go visit them, they've done an amazing job of pulling in all the statistics, and I've learned some things I didn't know, and we'll talk about that in a second. But 450,000 people are incarcerated for non-violent drug offenses on any given day. All right, it's almost 500,000 people in America that are in jail for non-violent drug offenses, and police are still making over 1 million drug possession arrests every year. So, it's great
Mhm.
for me. I'm like, hey, cannabis is legal. We've been like rocking this for a while. And I'm kind of, I'm Colorado cannabis privileged. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's
Yes.
it's just what it is. We have this
Yes.
thing, and I'm kind of that a-hole who I've gone to like conferences in Arizona, Rob. And I'm like, let's pull, and I just started to like cannabis conference, and I'm like pulling out a bowl or a vape pen, and they're all looking at me like, what are you doing, dude? And this is like a few years back, and I'm like, whoa, we're
Mm.
smoking. Like, you can't do that here. And I'm like, oh yeah, we can't. And I'm like, I'm like,
How
still
many
thinking.
other states are similar to Colorado in that?
Right now, the number we're I believe at 29 states that have some form of legalization as far as recreational fully. Um,
Mm.
5 states. God, I'm bad. I just blanked out on the amount of states. I think it's 5 right now. But right now it was Colorado and Washington first, and then Oregon very quickly after, and of course you have California, and then Michigan's going that way. It's kind of the dominoes are falling, and then there is a House bill. I'm going to be speaking about this. I'm going to be doing a video on this. Just a quick like roundup of the House bill that's going to be trying to remove cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act, which is really kind of the mother of all moves. That opens the floodgates. It takes the DEA out of the equation pretty much completely. And
But
so
there's no reason for it to be so heavily policed,
no, 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 no. Well, because
etc.
again, there is a reason. It's just not a
There's a
reason you want
plant,
on paper,
right?
right? It's so,
Correct.
and I think that's the thing. The question is, do you think of is it this Machiavellian thing where they're like, is it the guys in the room like we're gonna get the black guys, we're gonna get the brown people, we're gonna do all this, and I always have to go in an old timey gangster voice. Sorry. Um,
Get the black guy.
is that what it is, or is it more of like like I said, it's become systemic. It's in our culture. Enough people now are aware of it, but they don't realize still. You know, I mean, both people running for president essentially don't realize this right now because
Mm.
they're from that older day of misinformation where they still can't get
Yes,
it
they
into
are.
their head that cannabis is safe. But it was basically attached to the dangerous black man, wasn't it?
It was, and it was this thing that it was due. It was both the dangerous black man, right? It was also that the dangerous black
And
man
Mexicans,
give this. Oh yes, and
and Mexicans,
Mexicans. Can't forget the Mexicans.
yeah,
And give this to your innocent white girl and take
yes,
advantage of her.
yes. The
This has
lily
always
white,
been a piece of
the
it.
lily white Karens of the day.
What's the lily white Karens?
Karens or
Sounds like
future
a.
Karens of America, future Karens of America.
I have to write that down right now.
We're gonna have to write that down.
Future Karens of
Of
America.
America
Oh
dot
my God.
com. I am on it.
That's
That is
brilliant.
where I'm going. Oh,
Wow.
by the way, Melanie 8012 said she has plenty of COVID silver linings. So feel
She has
free to
plenty of what?
COVID silver linings. So feel free to share
Okay.
one with us, Melanie, if you'd like. Give us a good
Sure.
silver lining. But we're talking. We did segue into where we wanted to go anyway, Rob.
We
It's
naturally do.
amazing how that happens, right?
Naturally.
So Oh, and remind me, we have a commercial to play for our show.
I love it.
So if
We
we
have
got to
to
keep
have
time at
commercials.
around 6:30, we're going to try to keep this show at
Good
60
ones.
60ish minutes, everybody, unless you're asking for more and
Yes, you're
well,
begging us.
unless you're
Yes.
begging us. So um so we wanted to talk about, obviously one of the topics of the day, which is the police brutality and violence and the protests. And we're like the show's named Gray Matter. I want us to try to, and we kind of naturally do this, so it's not like it's a forced thing, Rob, but let's get into kind of the gray of all the conversations and like look at it from the different angles. um and and just find where the bullshit is. We can do that, right?
Mm,
Yeah, let's do
uncover it.
uncover the
Uncover it.
bullshit, uncover the steaming pile, and get it.
Of bullshit.
There's a
Yes.
lot of it. So let's talk about um. Let's talk about the violence right now, and
Mm.
Rittenhouse is the guy I want to talk about. The
Oh, yeah.
17-year-old kid,
Mm.
17-year-old white boy. And by the way, I'm starting to think there's nothing more privileged than a 17-year-old white boy. I really,
What?
I don't
It,
know. I'm thinking like, if you ever remember, there was a kid, and I want to say, please tell me I'm right. His name is Tim Couch,
Tim
um,
Couch?
from Texas, who was his son of a rich parents in Texas, and he was drunk driving at the age of
Oh, he had
16 or
the
17.
affluenza
The
offense?
affluenza case.
Yeah.
Yes, the affluenza case. And if anybody out there doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, go ahead and ask us a question about the affluenza case, because I got a lot to say about that shit.
Yes.
But basically, the
Yes.
statement of the affluenza
It's the
case,
case that will be applied to Donald Trump Jr. whenever he commits whatever crime he does.
or gets caught for whatever crime he's already committed, or whatever it is,
Yes.
right? Right.
There
So,
you go.
so the affluenza case is essentially this young gentleman has been so privileged all of his life and so sheltered because of all of the money he has that he's never had any consequences for actions, and therefore he has done things that he shouldn't. And it was.
He wasn't raised to believe there wasn't anything he couldn't do.
And here's the thing, and this is the kind of judge I would be when the
Mm.
judge says that, right? When the defense says, it's like, well, he's never had any consequences for actions. It's like, well, today's the day. I mean, how else is he going to
Yes.
learn, everybody?
Yes.
So, but instead, what did that judge do? Goes, wow, you got a really good point there. And here's the
There
thing:
were
could a black kid?
no.
No.
Next topic.
But here's the thing, because honestly, tell me the truth. I mean, I know this about other black friends of mine. They know the law better than most anybody because they need to. Like
Yeah.
you need, what are my rights when the cop comes? What is this? What is it? What is going? Because you have to be taught that. Again, the white privilege part is I didn't have to be taught that when I was a kid. You
And
know,
you didn't have to be taught to fear the police. Your parents probably I mean, your parents are wonderful people. Your parents wanted you to, I'm sure, avoid getting into any sort of trouble, for lack of a different word,
yeah,
that would get the attention of the police,
correct.
right? And
Well,
get you in trouble.
yeah, my parents are like, they're super nice people, as you know.
Yes.
They're also very like as law abiding as they will feel guilty, I think, if they even jaywalked, honestly. And a perfect example was, I think it was, that COVID closed down everything, but
Yes.
my daughter gets to go swimming with them, and that's one of the things.
Oh,
They
right.
have a little complex, so they open the complex up, and and she was like, okay, you can go. Well, Mia, you can go swimming. My dad's like, well, she can't really go swimming, and I'm like, why? She's like, well, the complex said if you're not on the lease, you can't come to the pool.
God, dude, it's your granddaughter. It's okay.
I'm
It's
like,
okay.
she's 6, Dad. She's 6. If she lived in this house, she wouldn't be on the lease. But okay. And I was like, I think you could break the law.
Oh,
And Mia's
goodness.
hilarious. She's like, Dad. She goes, Dad, we broke the law. Uh,
That's brilliant.
I mean, it's just that. So that's how good my parents are. Yeah. So that's where I was raised, and I've said this on other shows in the past, but I was a peer advisor. You know what that was?
What
That meant,
advisor?
so it was one of the, like, let me pad my stats to get into Syracuse, basically. Um, it was one of those things during the just say no phase, because you and I grew up in just say no.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
Vince
and
Reagan.
and so I would go to junior highs and advise to people the danger of drugs. Um,
Okay.
which the irony
I did a
is,
similar thing.
yeah,
Interesting.
hashtag irony. Look at what I do for a living now. So it's kind of
Mm,
funny. But I made up for
yes.
lost time. And I
Especially
honestly,
Baltimore.
I was a late bloomer on cannabis. I didn't have my first joint until the end of my freshman year in college in Syracuse. Um,
I think I had, well, I actually smoked once when I was about 15, and it was very strong, and it like freaked me out.
mm,
And then I didn't really again until maybe the end of sophomore year of college,
really?
beginning of
Oh,
junior
it was
year,
probably with
something
me
like that.
too. It was probably with me.
No, it was actually with
Oh,
a
are we gonna
former
say
roommate
names?
who.
Are we saying names now?
No, I'm not going to
Uh,
say his name, but anyway, so yeah, but yes, but I also was in in organizations or groups that promoted, a just say no
right, right.
mindset.
Yeah, I remember actually a teacher in high school saying, "Just say no." We were doing the whole thing about she was like the drug teacher. I forget what they were called.
The drug teacher.
Whatever
Okay,
that is. I don't know whatever
yes,
that
that's what
is.
she was.
You know
She's
what
a
I'm
drug
talking
teacher.
about, though, right? But she like they taught about like health and drugs, and I think that she even covered
Yes,
sex. All the fun stuff, really. But somebody said, "Well,
yes.
what's it like to get high?" And she
Hmm.
said, "Well," and obviously she was ex hippie, but trying. But she's like, "Well, you just imagine how." And it was funny because she never said she smoked, but all of a sudden we were like, "How would she know that?" She's like, "Imagine the best feeling you've ever had, and then multiply it times like 100,000." And
Hmm.
I'm sitting there going, "That sounds pretty good,
Wow.
actually." Yeah,
Like a
you are
hundred
not
thousand.
dissuading me whatsoever. Um, she's like, "How
Yes,
do you
not even
think I
close.
am dealing with you all?" Right? Um, but okay, so totally veering off subject and all that, but we're back. All right, so somebody just clapped. I don't know why Chicky Ray clapped, but we're on a delay, so I have never idea what we're like
Hmm.
20
Hmm.
seconds ahead of you guys when it gets to you. Um, but anyway, uh, back to this Rittenhouse guy, because here's the thing: he
Yes,
traveled across state lines, right?
yes, he did.
What do you know about the facts? Did you do any? You work during the day, so I know it's hard for you to jump on, and I'm like, hey, let me do some research.
No,
Um,
no, but I mean, I'm definitely in the evening reading up on things and
mhm,
so forth and so on. For me, at the end of the day, a it's funny because they talk about him as a kid,
mhm.
right?
Yes.
They talk about Trayvon Martin as if he were a man,
Mhm.
which is a
Isn't
big
that
piece of the brain.
interesting? Yeah.
Yeah,
Again.
that's consistent.
Oh,
This
we are
notion
there.
that black boys are that they can't distinguish from them, and they're so big and scary. And but anyway, that he was walking down the street, they're too blind to see that he's able to get away with what he got away with because he is white.
Well, I
They,
mean,
they don't want to acknowledge that piece of it. Like, no, we treat everyone the same. No, you
you
don't.
don't.
If a
You don't.
black person, but if a black 17-year-old boy
Yeah.
is walking down the street, where was this? This was Kenosha, right?
Excuse me,
Is
sorry.
this where this happened? In Kenosha?
In Kenosha, yes.
Everything's a blur in my head now.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this
they
is
blend in, so it's hard to keep track. But
um,
yes, it happened in Kenosha.
insane. Was walking down the street with was it AR-15, right?
Yes.
Um, he would never have been able to just walk by.
Well, look, I don't want to say that because I have seen protesters that are black that are walking around with rifles at protests. So I I
Well, then my next question would be
yeah.
because you live in Colorado, so
And I don't mean
there's
personally. I mean just seeing on video. I've seen in the news black and white protesters with guns, even talking to each other, even though they're on the other side, because they still are supporting. There's a Second Amendment bond going on there, right? Um, but please continue your thought because
but I
I just want to
think
clarify that.
but no, but I think it's important that you said that because I think that I would want to break down protesters more because I to understand the situation
Mm-hmm.
of when you saw these people and what was happening because this was a night of quote unquote mayhem, if I'm not
Yes, yes,
incorrect.
yes.
I do
Well,
not believe on a night of mayhem
yes.
that
Hmm.
a black kid walking down with that kind of firearm
Yes, he
would
was.
have so easily been able to walk by.
Well, look, this kid, he was illegally carrying the firearm. and then he's sharing water with the cops. Like he's literally breaking the law in front of the cops, and they're
Right.
just and they're giving him water. Like, hey man, we really appreciate you guys being there. I mean, that's on video. That actually happened. So,
Mm-hmm.
now the defense of Rittenhouse is kind of crazy because you have 3 people that were shot, 2 were killed.
Mm-hmm.
Now the first one had I'm hoping I'm trying to remember I get the details right. Had shot a gun into the air, into the
Okay.
air. Right now, look, let's go ahead and say it. Don't shoot a fucking gun in the air. Yes, but you also this kid had no business being there in the first place. All right, and he's not the person who should be handling a gun
I
because he.
have. This is also funny. It's not in his defense, but I, because of the way that I think about things,
Mhm.
I can't say he had no business being there. This
It's a free
in this
country.
country. Yes, in this country, if you want to support something in another state,
Mhm.
every person has the
Mhm.
right to do that.
Yes.
They don't have the right to commit acts of violence,
Mhm.
right?
Sure.
Well, I mean, again, they do have the right, but they don't have. They can expect
Well,
to be
no.
held accountable for
Well, and yes, but he didn't have the right to bring that gun across state lines the way he did. I'm not saying
it.
you can't legally bring guns across state lines, but you have to do it the right way, and he didn't. Um,
And well, I mean, that's as someone who doesn't have a gun. I don't. I'm glad that there are those things. I hope that I'm glad that there are those things because I feel like we have a country of so many laws that need to be eradicated, erased as laws.
yeah, interesting. Like, you ever feel like they should just wipe all laws away and then go, let's start fresh with these again, and let's build off of that.
We're too
Oh no,
entangled
it's a
in this
web.
to start again. But I
Oh yeah.
think it's easier than believed. Like there are laws that are complete bullshit laws. Like there's uh, a law in pretty sure it was in New York. It might have been New Jersey,
Hmm.
but we're like it's illegal to throw your personal mail like that
Hmm.
you've read and you're discarded
Hmm.
into like a I guess it'd be called a public garbage can
Hmm.
on the street corner. Like you would get
Okay.
a ticket for that.
Yeah.
Why is that a law?
Well, wait a minute now, because now you're messing with my. Well, I guess if you throw in a garbage, it's public. It doesn't matter. But that's see. I mean, yeah, and there are weird laws like that. And why does that law exist? And like, where did it come from? And
Yes,
I'm sure that's a fascinating story actually as to where this stupid law came from, and it's going to be ridiculous, right? Um, but
but we're writing people
but
tickets. We're creating a system of a constant punishment for unnecessary
yeah, yeah,
things.
yeah. I mean, there is that, and I do agree with that. But I mean, at the same, here's the thing. Look, uh, I kept thinking about be coming into this conversation today with you because knowing about an hour ahead of time, this is what we're going to talk about today. Because and by the way, that's about as much prep as we can do nowadays because we don't know what the hell is going to happen.
We know what
And
tomorrow's going to be. What?
I mean,
No
like 2
idea.
days ago, like, what do you want to talk about? I was like, maybe this. It's like, who
Because
knows?
every day there's something.
Every day there's something, and it's honestly one of those reasons why I'm kind of like enjoying this shift from like print. And even though I love the time and I love the kind of time consuming and the writers and I love all of that, it's like it was always like make it evergreen, make this content this, and sometimes I just want to talk about shit that's going on, and that was
Right.
kind of the fun part about what we're doing here, right? But I think I keep so anyway. I kept getting reminded coming into this conversation of this scene from The Untouchables, and it's a Sean Connery scene.
Right.
By the way, whatever happened to Sean Connery, right? But I mean, but
I liked him.
yeah, I know, but
He's
like
got to be like 80 something now, right?
and he says, you know how you beat Capone, and I'm just not this. I'm not going to do the accent. I'm going to butcher it. But he's like, if they bring a knife, you bring a gun. If they put one of yours in the hospital, you put one of them in the morgue. And I'm like, yeah, that's what's happening. It's going to start getting like
Mm.
it's going to escalate and it's going to escalate. And again, I love what you said earlier, and I think we should go into that. Is like we need to not group this into two groups, cops and Black Lives Matter, because there's these weird little pockets going
Mm-hmm.
on,
Mm-hmm.
and they have ulterior motives, and they're on either side. I mean, there's violence on the other side. I get that, and I'm not saying there isn't, but what I can't believe is how the right tries to point at like one act on the left side and equate it to like 500 acts or 50 acts even on what's going on the alt right side. I mean, there was a thing that came
Well,
up. Yeah.
they go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no, please. No, I've been talking. Go.
Oh, no, no, no. Um, uh, they position themselves as there are no bad acts on their side. All of their acts and the way they
Yeah.
believe and think and talk amongst
Yeah.
themselves are solely done for the greater good.
Yeah.
Everyone else is trying to, wreak havoc or create
Mm-hmm.
anarchy. And are there people who want anarchy? Absolutely. There
Yeah.
are always have been, probably
Yeah.
always will be
Always will be.
people who want anarchy.
Yeah.
M- Most people are not fighting for anarchy.
No.
They are fighting for a massive or arguing for a massive structural reconfiguration. But they're not, the majority of people are not. So when they say that, there's, because they're determined to make protesters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter and other topics
Mm-hmm.
that people are protesting about. Um, the the protesters to be these evil looters.
Yeah. No. And
So,
and
are
that's
there
it.
looters at some of the
Of course
protests?
they are.
Of course. Well, not even of course, but sometimes and possibly, and yes, but not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But are they the majority of the people? It's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not even close.
Yeah. Well, and here's where I can't stand the media, and I'm not a fake news guy. It's just like just pay attention what the media shows you, and what they don't show you, and what they're not talking about, and what they are talking about, right? And how I mean, you're not hearing the media like sit down as much as I'd like them to talk to the either side, and or like, hey, why don't y'all create a fucking round table yourselves? Because the president ain't gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
Create a situation where we can get them together, but they're already distracted because they're like my dog with a squirrel or a rabbit, and they're just like off and gone because they saw some movement over there, and oh, Trump is dictating the story now, and he literally is dictating the story. Um, and
I don't, I cannot give him that much credit. I comprehend that he has an understanding of marketing
Mhm.
and media. He's not a genius. He's definitely
No,
unstable. He's an unstable genius. He's an unstable
no,
genius.
he, you know,
He's an unstable person.
yeah,
Um,
he's the
but
world's most enabled human being. That's what he
I
is.
can't. I can't. Um,
I think so.
he's not dictating the story. There are things that are happening. People, the journalists worth their salt can turn away from the story that he's trying to create and challenge him, which is why I liked there was an interview with Jonathan Swan. I think
Oh,
is
the
his last name.
Axios one.
Yeah,
I love that
and
one.
he did what reporters should do. Like he literally challenged him
But
on everything, and you
he
could
was so
see that
smooth.
he
He was
couldn't
so smooth.
handle it.
He did it so smoothly, and he was just like
Yes.
oh, but oh, you're talking about cases. I'm talking about deaths, and he said it so calmly that you can't be like, what are you doing? And he was just like,
Right.
I'm just talking
He
about deaths.
wanted to respond that way, but he didn't know how to.
Oh, no, no, I agree with that. It was probably he was really played well. But
Yes.
you know it's getting bad for Trump when Laura Ingraham is questioning some of the shit he's saying. I don't know if you
She's a
saw
hot mess too.
what.
She's a hot mess too, but we
Oh,
can
I
talk
know
about her
she is,
another
but
time.
she was like fact checking him during their interview, and I was like, wow, okay, there you go.
And I
Um,
have no sympathy for them. They all sold their souls. They all got on board with this man
yes, correct.
when
I
they
agree with that.
comprehended that he is a crazy, like truly crazy,
Well, he is.
arrogant
Oh,
ass.
no, no, you're absolutely right. So listen, we got to take a quick commercial
Yes.
break. And we have a great new sponsor with Colorado Department of Transportation, and so we are gonna take a quick pause for look. Everybody, I'm doing this all on my own, so you all gotta wait. I'm looking like weird here, but all right. So here's our sponsor. Word from our sponsor.
How would you feel if a school bus driver was high on the job? They wouldn't be, and neither should you when driving. Lives are at stake every time you get behind the wheel. Plan ahead. Don't drive high.
All right, and we're back. That was not smooth transition. Sorry, but hey, first time. And so going back to what we were just talking about, which was, wait, which part did you just say? Because there was something you said that I really wanted to talk about. Oh,
That
well,
they went all in with him when
oh,
they
they
knew he
went all
was an
in.
idiot.
Yeah, but look, we got to have some kind of. There's got to be a conversation of how do you get back to this, right? Like how do we come back from this? Or
We
it,
don't.
so you think so here's the question, right? Here's the question. Is there an olive branch that can be passed on, or do you think it just has to be a complete obliteration of the Republican Party?
Oh, complete obliteration.
Complete obliteration. Now,
Yes.
because I'm an independent, right? Like
Hmm.
obviously, I
So am
lean.
I. I'm a registered independent.
We're both registered independents.
Hmm.
I am not against voting for Republican at all. Just show me one I want to vote for, people, and like,
Yeah, I don't know about right now.
well, and here's the thing, like because the problem I have right now is the part of the Republican ideal that I grew up with and you grew up with was like fiscal
Hmm.
conservancy. Now my
Right.
eyes are wide open and I realize, wow, you weren't fiscally conservative. You
It was
just
also a social conservancy, though. They try to act like their main identity is fiscal, being a fiscal conservative,
correct.
but that's not even close. It was also being a very socially conservative
Well, to me, I
person.
feel like the social stuff, honestly, is really just like a red herring. It's like they're just using that to get some voters that are vote against some of their own interests. I mean, because look, I don't really think they care about abortion. I don't think that the
Oh, I think some of them
I no
really
no
do.
I think some of them do. I'm sorry. Let me be clear. I just don't think that the party platform is not necessarily about stopping abortion. It's something they throw in as red meat to try to get some momentum there, right? The facts about abortion, if people really want to know, is and I'll have to get the statistics on this at some point because I don't have them right in front of me, but it didn't know it was going to come up by the way. But is that we are pretty much at an all-time low for abortions, and I mean
Wow.
pre Roe v. Wade. So,
Hmm.
um, and so throughout all that time, it's like, so if you didn't want that many abortions, we're getting there. I mean, they're going to happen no matter what. And that was the whole point of Roe v. Wade, right? I mean, if somebody doesn't want this baby, they're going to go out and get an abortion because they were raped or whatever it was. Now they can do it in a healthy manner. So it's just a better,
Yes, in a safe
you know.
environment, they don't have to risk
And
their
again, it's their
life.
fucking body. I mean, it's not my job to tell you what to
Yes,
do with your body. That's what it comes down to.
but
All right.
that's oh my god.
It
I
doesn't
had a
matter.
whole conversation about that the other
But
day.
like my point about that, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Someday we can do that, right? But
Hmm.
I would really like to have a woman on as well if we're going to have that
Oh my god,
conversation.
of course.
But okay, but what I'm trying to say is I feel like there's a majority of Republicans, like Mitch McConnell Republicans, and that don't
Hmm.
give a shit. They are
No, they
not
really
in
don't.
it.
Really
They're
don't.
not in it for their religious beliefs and ideals. They're in it for
They're
the
in it for
power.
themselves.
Yeah, and they're in it for the power. They're in it for the money and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And so it's just something they're using to get people to vote against the other things that are terrible policies for poor people. That is, and that's why I see. I mean, you see people voting against their own best interests on a regular basis. Um, but
Hmm.
to go back to the brutality side, I mean, the defense for this kid is they shoot a gun in the air, and then people, of course, in any other place. So here's the thing. So these protesters are literally policing this kid who just shot somebody, right?
Hmm.
Which is exactly what like Tucker Carlson and the president, all these right wing nut jobs are defending him for, which is to try to defend law and order. And they were the ones who were like, "You're the violent one now. We're trying to defend
Hmm.
ourselves against you." And it's just it's fascinating to me how you have this conversation about it. And you know who Trey Gowdy is?
Oh my God. I wish I didn't, but I do.
So he was on one of your favorite guys, Bill Maher's show the other day.
Well, I
No,
don't
no,
know
I know he's
about.
not. I was being sarcastic,
Okay.
by the way. But Bill Maher asked him questions because he was, you know who he is, and he was,
Mhm.
going after Benghazi. And look, Benghazi was something that needed to
He
be.
looks like an elf. I'm sorry to be petty, but
It's
he
okay.
looks
It's
like an
okay. It's
elf.
okay. We can be catty too. But look he was the prosecutor for Benghazi, and he
Yes.
went after that. And here's the thing, that needed to be investigated. All right, 4 Americans die. How was it
Yeah, you want
handled?
to know what happened? 100%.
It needs to be investigated.
100%.
So but don't tell me that needs to be investigated and 180,000 deaths in COVID don't, or that the Ukraine scandal for on the presidential phone call doesn't, or the bounties doesn't, and
Because
it's
they
just the list,
changed
the
things
list,
to
the list.
suit
Right.
their
But
means.
Marr basically did pin him down on that, and he basically he said, he's like, well, why wouldn't you do this? And he kind of said, he's like, well, as one side, we're always going to take one side of it and prosecute more on that side than the other. And part of me was like, well, at least you freaking admitted it. All right.
It's like they don't, if, and I don't have anything against the idea of senators and Congress people and elected officials. And people say we should have no politics. There will always be some form of politics and parties and
mm,
everything.
yeah,
Um, but this notion of, you know, now we're going to take them down because they took us down last time and you held up our Supreme Court judges. And no, well, now we're going to hold up your Supreme Court judge. It's like, are we, leading the world or are we for?
right.
It's there's a ridiculousness to it because Trey Gowdy is a perfect example of someone who you watch some of the arguments he made. It's the same thing with Jim Jordan. You know who Jim Jordan is?
I wish I
Yeah,
didn't.
exactly.
You know.
Exactly. Um, who it's like, well, Jim Jordan thinks he's still like a frat boy or a college jock or something, just the way he carries himself. And
No,
I'm not even
no.
talking
I
about
mean,
the
honestly,
rumors.
if I saw a picture, I mean, if you saw like the word asshole in a dictionary, I feel like he would be the picture. I mean,
He is definitely a top contender.
in it, yeah, because I don't feel like there's any real thought behind the guy. I don't feel like,
No,
I mean, he's
he
just a
just like is
bulldog.
angry to be angry and like trying to be a tough guy. That's a lot of the things that these guys who voted for Trump liked. They saw in him the chance to sort of like almost bring back their glory days. Number one, if they had them, but two, also celebrate this like notion of like uber macho, like yeah, like like being the tough guy. Like Trump's a tough guy. So
Right,
you look
right.
at Jim Jordan, and there's another guy from Texas who I can't remember his name.
Ron
But
Johnson. You mean
no,
no?
no, I know him. It's
You're not saying Ted
his
Cruz.
dark
No,
hair, shorter. Oh God, no, not
no.
Ted Cruz.
I'm,
And
um,
I'll research
it'll
it. But
come.
it's the
It'll come.
same, this tough guyness that they all have, which is like, can you like just lead the world properly and like stop all this unnecessary back and forth? Like half of you probably, if we really got rid of the laws that we don't need and focus on the things that we need to get done, we probably would need half of the elected officials that we actually have. I think a lot of them are there just wasting
Well,
time
that's
and
interesting. Well, look. Here's the thing. First of all, that's you'd have to change the Constitution for that.
yes,
And I
yes.
actually
I mean,
agree.
in some places we actually need more, so I
Well, I
comprehend.
agree with the breakdown of how like the House is set up to the Senate. I mean, there's a there's an eloquence
Yes.
in the even in the complexity of it in a sense, right? Because the
Mm-hmm,
way the
mm-hmm.
system is done, the system's broken down because we have too many people who aren't following the ethics that were kind of expected in the
Yes.
Constitution. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I'm only talking about ethics as far as in government. I don't mean ethics in how we're treating human beings, because let's be clear, the Constitution was
Constitution
written
was written by
by slave
slaveholders.
owners.
Thank you.
And so I think that's the problem right now too, is you have all these people who are making statements that like, well, we don't want you to rewrite our history. And it's like, well, no, history was rewritten. We're just correcting
We're
history.
not rewriting anything. We're
Yeah.
actually writing.
Well, and then
Like whatever was written before was written incorrectly, often by people who knew what they were writing was incorrect.
Well, again, I think it comes down to there's this thought process, right? Where and you'll probably hear me say this a lot. I think there's faith-based thinking, and then there's fact-based thinking. And right now, like the faith-based is, and it's a constitutional belief, right? Like the faith-based thinking is the Constitution was written by people who are way smarter than all of us, right?
Yeah.
They know more than we do, and we're gonna follow what those guys said, even though they had no idea the issues we'd be dealing with in 2020, or the types of weaponry or all that stuff, right? Um, and so it just you you have to look at it like it's a living document. They amended it as they saw need. And most of the amendments were written by these guys. I mean, like they amended right away. I mean, that First Amendment is an amendment. It was not originally in the Constitution that you had freedom of speech. And then they went, oh,
Yes. They're
hey,
like,
by the
oh
way,
yeah.
oh yeah, now that we've created our government, let's talk about the rights people are supposed to
Oh my
have.
God. Yes.
And so there's,
Yes.
um, I still want to know. Don't you wish you were fly on the floor on the wall when they like decided how much a slave was worth? As far as like, was there a negotiation? Was there a like, what the hell was that conversation? And did
It
anybody
was
did anybody what did anybody go? I can't believe we're having this conversation, guys.
not enough people to end it.
Yeah, no, obviously.
You know,
Um, but look, so
craziness.
to me, the Constitution is the brilliance of it is a living document that can be changed.
Yes.
And so yeah, we should change certain things, but I do believe the structure is really sound.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, um, maybe not lifelong appointments for Supreme Court justices because life
I would
ex.
say. I would say a Supreme Court justice term is. I want to say 25, but
25
I'm going
years,
to say 24 to keep it in the same system of like,
4 years,
every 2
2 years.
years there's this, every 4 years there's that. So they would automatically always phase out in conjunction with the presidential election year, possibly.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
But yeah, at least 20 years, but 25 years I think is a
Well,
nice solid number.
because honestly, they were probably thinking you ain't going to last more than 20 years anyway. I mean, this
Well,
is
that's just it. So most of them will probably either choose to step down or
right.
may have passed away because usually they're in their 60s, right?
No, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, we're seeing some. I mean, God, RGB, God love that lady.
Yes. Well, she's been there for 30 years, right? So she was at her, I think
Yeah,
maybe she was just 60 or something when she became a
yeah,
justice.
yeah, maybe. So yeah, I get it. 20 years, 24, 5 years. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. And honestly, I just think it just. I don't know. I think, and there could be potentially. I mean, obviously, death could be a thing, but you could say there's a rolling thing where, like, maybe it's you can't have two Supreme Court justices within a couple of years of each other if you can help it, or something like that, right? I mean, obviously, somebody could die, and that changes some things, but there should be like a
I think
term.
there needs to be a greater uh, public input in some way. I'm not saying final decision, but in some way into that decision.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't know how to choose a judge, because I'm not a
Right.
lawyer who's dealt with it. Like a lot of bar associations, I believe they have more of a say in state by state selections for judges. Honestly, I get a judge vote and I don't know who I'm voting
Yes,
for.
exactly. Exactly.
I mean, and so it's messed up. Like, I mean, I don't know what is their stance on a lot of things. I mean, how do they treat people when I mean, are they racist? And so that the people who know that are the attorneys who are dealing with them, right? The prosecution and the defense attorneys. To me, they're the ones that make the most sense, is as collectively as people who know what to say about them. And I think also,
Mm-hmm.
if they're the ones that have more of a say in who gets to be a judge, equally, again, prosecution and defense, I think he should be equal. I think then you're going to find that the judges are going to be a lot more forced to be fair minded, because they know the people they're judging, and their performance in front of them, they're are going to judge them back. I think
Yes.
it's a nice check and balance, right? Um, we've totally veered away from where we were going, which is probably going to be typical for us, and
Yes,
kind of the
yes.
Constitution. We've had this conversation in the past, and if anybody out there is listening, I'd love to hear some comments from you guys, and you can send some directly to us on Facebook as well if you're
Hmm.
seeing a recording of this later on. But we've talked, Rob, about potentially reviewing different amendments in the Constitution, kind of going over different things
Yes,
as
yes.
a potential, like, kind of after show kind of thing where we have like the layman's terms conversations about our amendments, right? And because you
Love that
know,
idea.
I I'm constantly trying to educate myself, and it's been a long time since I took civics,
Me
so I have
too.
to go. I got to go back and go through that stuff.
My mother always
Um,
expresses her frustration that they got rid of civics.
yes, exactly. So hey, we haven't talked in a while, you and I, and for those of you out there, Rob and I, we do have these great conversations, and that finally we're like, we should make this into a show, man. And so Um, we haven't talked literally since the Republican convention. And I don't want to go crazy into it, but like part of me is like, does the convention matter? Is my first question. Does it really matter?
It matters because we have an electoral college system. If there was a popular vote, I don't think they would have as much of a thing around them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel. I don't have anything against the idea of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the issue for me is what is their purpose, right?
Right.
You can have it, but what is does it need to be 4 nights? Could it be a 2 night? Like, what is it's very drawn out, and
Yeah.
for it to be a televised thing, not that people have to watch it, but um, and when we finally have more than two parties, so it's that now the Working Families Party with the Green Party, now it's their convention for 4 nights. Like,
Right.
you know,
Could you imagine?
it's
Well,
it's too much.
Well, and again, is it a remnant of like yesteryear? I mean, back in the day, a convention might have been the only time that you got to see the candidates. And I mean, you
True.
saw them, but like it was a chance to like get to know them better and have like you're gonna spend a few hours with us for the next few days, and then it's over,
Right.
and then you can move on. But for us, we're spending hours with these people every freaking day, and it's
Well, the style
nonstop.
of it, I think, has overstayed its welcome. It can be so. There are aspects of it that could be virtual, right?
Hmm.
That's definitely a piece that could remain.
Hmm.
I um, I don't know how else to frame this, but from a campaign and energizing the crowd perspective,
Hmm.
the RNC did the correct thing to energize their base. They
Right.
had there were people, there was cheering, there was adoration, right? And I don't mean just adoration towards Trump,
Hmm.
but I mean in the sense that that's a piece of the applause is a
Hmm.
piece of the experience,
So when you
right?
don't have it for real,
Like you have Kamala up there having a truly historic moment for what
yeah,
she represents
yeah.
and no sound.
And she did a wonderful job in her speech, by the
She was
way. She
great, but
was, but
you need the cheering, the crowd. That's a piece of it.
well, and like, did you see Kimberly Guilfoyle? I
Oh,
think I said
she's
her.
crazy. She's
I
crazy.
get she's crazy, and I get that she shouted and
Fine.
screamed, and obviously, like we'd be given some serious performance notes, but she performed as if there was thousands of people in that room.
And to the people who she specifically was on that stage to inspire, they were in their homes cheering back.
She reminds me of Sarah Palin somehow. I don't know what it is.
Oh God, Sarah Palin. We need to do a whole
No,
yes,
it
because I
is.
have some things to say.
Well, can we
But anyway,
wait? There's too much shit going on, man. Can we wait till
oh yeah,
things
yeah.
slow down
We can
and
do
just
that. We're in 2025. Um,
2025?
but yes, the crowd, is a
Hmm.
piece of it.
Hmm.
That's what when you see people on the convention floor and they're excited and
Hmm.
.
Oh no, no, I mean, and I get it. You and I get it because we like to do theater, and like it's really
Exactly. That's
nice.
like having no audience.
How do you do that with no audience? It's hard. I
What?
mean, it
It's
takes time. It's a
rehearsal.
skill. It's a rehearsal. It is, and it takes somebody saying, "Don't shout so fucking much, lady. Shut up." Um,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
So many
crazy.
of the things that we like they have athletes playing now with no people.
Yeah.
How is that? That's practice. That's
Well,
not a
but
game.
they're piping. I haven't even watched a game. I just don't have time for this. But
I have some tape that I haven't really watched
they
yet.
they
I
have
need to
like
get to.
somebody was telling me they have screens and people are like actual fans are talking through a video, or you can hear them when they collectively make a sound or something like that. And then there's some places like in hockey, I think, where you could actually pay for a cardboard cutout of you to be in the
But
stands.
is that what you want, right? I'm not an
No.
athlete, but is that what they would want?
You know
Is
what?
their inspiration staring at a stadium full
No.
of cardboard cutouts?
No. But you know what I want though? I want if I'm going to watch a game, I mean, why not let me hear them talking? Let me hear the play. I mean, it's an experience I've never had. I've
But
never
the public is not supposed to have
I
that. To
know,
me,
we're not
that's
supposed
the
to.
equivalent of backstage.
It's true. It's true.
Public's not supposed to know about that.
That's true. I
They
don't
need to
know.
get people in these. That's a whole other conversation, but there needs to be people needed. We as a culture,
Okay.
as a country, right? Because other countries are reopening successfully, but we as a
Well, yeah.
country need to figure out what the next step is so that people can comfortably socialize again, because that's
Well,
what we're supposed to do.
well, the other countries reopened successfully because they closed successfully.
Well,
We
because they had a plan.
Right, we did not close successfully. But like, okay, so we have 10 more minutes left in our conversation,
Yes.
and you brought up sports. And so
Yes.
I gotta talk. We got to talk about the basketball strike and again WNBA and the NBA and MLB. Everybody holding and freezing their games.
Yes.
Do you think it accomplished anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the act of it, um, by just the act, by people now not being able to go to games or watch games or so forth and so on, are forced to be aware of the issue, right?
Mm,
You weren't on your way to your hockey game and it got canceled. And you don't know why. You know exactly why. So the issue is forced upon people whether they want it to be or
mhm.
not. And they do have a very low. I don't think it's the responsibility of athletes to fix this in any way. Um, Nor
Right.
do I necessarily think it's their responsibility to speak up. I hate when people say artists should. Well, how come artists aren't speaking up? Then when artists do speak up, people say, "Well, they're an artist; they should
I
stay
know.
out of
Shut the hell.
politics."
Yeah.
Like it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and so they use their platform the best way that they know how. Um, I think it accomplished what it needed to accomplish.
Well. Okay.
The thing that needs to be accomplished is the police department changing. That's what the accomplishment needs to be.
Well, it is what and that's I guess the thing is, I feel like the message, and I said this before on the media side, like they're not showing. I mean, they have an opportunity to create a roundtable. They have the opportunity to do something like this, right? But on top of that, the message is, did we forget about the demands? Did we forget about that? And it's like, again, what I think is funny is it's like the media is turning into like Congress as far as approval ratings, right? I mean, like, no, everybody hates it. Everybody hates the media, but everybody, I mean, but for different reasons. Like I mean, and I, I think the media generally tells truths. I just think they tell half truths. Um,
Well, the word has been the Trump campaign so co-opted the word media
hmm
that like even when I watch Fox News, they talk about the media,
hmm As if
right?
they're not the media.
So their viewers by default are not experiencing them as the media, right?
Yes, correct.
They are experiencing them. They're saying they're watching the news, but they're watching an sort of entertainment parody of
Mm.
it. So so that media is crazy. The sort of I guess quote unquote left media. Um, they frustrated me when they don't do what Jonathan Swan did.
hmm
They don't push back hard enough. They don't
Oh, agreed.
challenge,
Agreed.
right?
Yeah.
That part of the media I hate because then they're just playing along with it.
Well, now it's just a bunch of people talking that all agree, kind of like you and I in a sense. But I mean, like, I feel like, the I just keep seeing this talking head said this day, and then they said the same exact thing the next day, and then the same exact thing the next day. And it's not that they're not intelligent about what they're saying, or, they don't know what they're talking about. But it's like there's a lot
We
of
have more
angles.
news than we need.
We
There was
do.
never a reason, and this isn't a jab at CNN, per se, the
Mhm.
people or their anchors, but we did not need a 24-hour news show.
No, to me, it's kind of in a sense like the post office, right? It's not supposed to be making profit. It's supposed to be just doing its service, right? And
Yes.
and that's the problem is for the longest time media was the write-off for the television stations, right? Back in the day, they were like, well, our job is to do the news, so we're going to do the news, and then we're going to make our money off all these shows, and so,
It
yeah,
shouldn't be that.
no, no. Oh,
And
Kimberly from
anyway.
Jackson Brown joined us, by the way. She's from New York
Oh,
City.
hey, Kimberly.
Hey. And she's probably like way
Good person.
behind in the stream. I'm not sure if she's live, but also somebody, Deacon Entertainment, said like cabaret dancing law in New York. Or when we're talking about weird laws, what is that? What is the cabaret dancing law?
Oh, and like in New York City, for years, they finally struck them down. I think it was like almost 100 years.
Uh huh.
You could not dance in a bar unless you had a cabaret license.
Wait, you could not
That
have
would allow for
dancing
that type
at your
of
bar. So,
so unless you were an establishment that was zoned or whatever it was
okay.
for that type of atmosphere,
Gotcha.
people can't dance. So your bar could have been shut down
For people dancing.
For dancing. They did that a lot during the pre-Stonewall times, where they would
It's like
use that
Footloose,
as their
man. That's like
excuse.
Footloose in New York.
Footloose. Oh my God, everybody Footloose.
It's like Footloose in New York, man. Where's John Lithgow? He's all like, you can't dance in here. You ain't got a license.
John
Wow. See, that to me sounds like some mafia shit, by the way. That sounds like something.
I believe it was.
Right? Because there was a law like that. So in Chicago, the liquor law, and I don't know if it's still like that. I think it is there's only so many liquor licenses in existence in Chicago.
Okay.
And so if you open up a restaurant and you want to serve alcohol, you have to wait in line. And you have to like basically put in something where you can be in line to
you
get
have to like wait for a restaurant to close,
or you can purchase, or I think you could purchase a restaurant that had a license, and then you could change its name. So
that sounds totally prohibition.
Oh, it was totally, and then it was like and so of course you'd be like, well, how did this restaurant just open right up and have a liquor license? That's amazing. Michael Jordan's restaurant had a liquor license the day it opened. And just just things like that. But it created a cool thing because in Chicago they had BYOB restaurants. So you would go into a restaurant and you could bring your own bottle of wine and you could bring liquor. You could bring in anything. You could have your own bar that you brought in, and then you paid like a corkage fee or whatever.
That's gone now?
Well, I think it still exists. I mean, I'm not there anymore. I'm pretty sure you can still do it, and you still have to wait in line as a restaurant when you open up. I'm not sure if they ever changed that or not. So if somebody from Chicago's listening, pipe in and let me know if they changed that thing. But it was actually cool because you could bring your own. It was hard for restaurants to make money when they didn't have liquor, and that that's problematic.
Seriously.
Yeah. So, but yeah, of course, it's totally some mafia stuff going on there because you had to grease some palms if you want to jump in the front of the line.
Yes,
I mean,
you do.
Chicago
Yes,
is
you do.
historically one of the
Shady.
most. Oh well, it's corrupt. You know why it's called the Windy City, right? It was not called the Windy City because of all the wind, even though it is windy. It was called the Windy City because somebody penned it, I think, in the Chicago Tribune long time ago. And it was because all the politicians were full of hot air. And he's like, it's the Windy City. That was the story I remember hearing about it.
So the Republican Party is now the Windy Party?
Well, you could say that they're the Windy Party, right?
There you go.
But so listen, hey, it is 6:58. We said we were gonna shut this down on time.
On time.
So if somebody,
felt so good.
I know, right? And everybody, and if you've come in with us, this is gonna be every Wednesday night. We're gonna be doing this.
8 p.m. Eastern.
Yes.
6 p.m. Mountain.
Yeah. If there are topics you want us to discuss, feel free to send them our way. But know that, hey, it's our show. We're going to talk about what we want. But we may, we're down.
Yes,
so please chat along with us. Share this out with everybody.
Yes, spread the word.
I know. I want to thank our sponsor, Colorado Department of Transportation, CDOT for their Plan Ahead, Don't Drive High campaign.
Yes, call it CAP.
I call a cab. Well, you're such a New Yorker. Call a cab. We're like calling Uber because there's no cab. There's no cabs in Denver anymore. Uber destroyed taxi
Yeah,
cabs.
same thing with New York. This
Is it
cabs are like dying.
is it dying?
Oh yeah.
I just remember back in the day, obviously when you could fly over New York. Those days, I don't think you can anymore, right? Where you would drive,
Not
you would
one.
fly over New York, and all you would see was like a moving
Yellow
yellow
cabs.
river. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a fun experience to.
The old days.
So are Uber drivers in New York like cab drivers? Are they similar?
In
Are
what
they
way?
and are they like as crazy fast driving and like weaving in and out and just
Some
like
of them can be. You
yeah,
definitely get a variety of
gotcha.
people. I'll put it that way.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. That's so
Yes.
politically correct. All right, man. Well, listen, guys, this was fun. This was a good
Yeah.
first
Thanks for
hour.
joining in.
We're gonna keep doing this every week. Again, share it out, and you can follow some other shows that we're gonna be launching soon. You can follow us on Facebook or on YouTube, and then we'll be starting to launch these on our website at hcmagazine.com as well. But we're this is our soft opening and launch of this thing, and I just can't tell you how excited I am to be able to do the show with you, Rob.
Yes,
It's a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and we might have to ask some of our fellow.
I already have a list.
You have a list. You have a list of SU alum to come in and join us, man.
Yes, I do.
Fantastic. That'd be fun. It would be like old school. It's like this. It's like a trip down nostalgia lane when the world was like a lot more normal. Fagans. Flip night at Fagans. Fagans. Wow, that's crazy. That's some old stuff. Cool, man. Well, listen.
All right, man.
This was a lot of fun, and
Yes,
we're gonna end this
you
right.
be well out there in Colorado.
All right, you take care of yourself in Brooklyn, man. I'm looking forward to coming out and visiting when the world
Yes,
isn't
I gotta head
burning.
back out there too.
I know. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us, and
Yes.
until next time, peace,
Yes.
love,
Peace.
and hempiness.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
yeah, I got you. You thought I was gonna say
Okay,
happiness.
Okay. Got it.
Sorry. Take care.